everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. It is me. It is my friend and partner, Matt Donato. We are here to talk to you. This is a 30-minute episode, which means we're here to talk to you about a newish release. We alternate these with the hour-long episodes where we have a fun special guest who joins us to talk about not only their relationship to the horror genre, but a movie that was instrumental, very influential on them and their career as well. If you haven't listened to any of this before, either an hour long or a 30-minute episode, we're Certified Forgotten. We get our name because some films are certified fresh, some films are certified rotten. Our films are certified forgotten. And I feel like I don't do the tagline enough, Donato. Do you think I should do it more? Should we say it with every episode?
We probably should, because that's how taglines work. If you don't use them, how do people know they exist?
That's correct. That's correct. I am in marketing professionally, but for some reason, once the clock turns over to 5 o'clock, I forget everything that I think I know, and I am just mush-brained and stumbling my way through all of the marketing of an independent horror publication.
Holy severance.
Yeah, very much so. Oh my God, very much so. We're talking about a film today that I think that you and I are particularly excited to talk about because it's easy when everybody likes something, right? When everybody's talking about one battle after another, and the conversation is it really, really good, or is it just good, or some variation thereof? You have a conversation about that, and you're like, okay, great. Like, let's figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, but we kind of agree on where placement is. Today's film is all over the map with critics, and there are people that seem to really and truly hate this one. So I'm going to read a short synopsis for those who haven't had a chance to check it out. But before we do the synopsis and go into the conversation proper, I do want to do a quick pulse check. Donato, did you see this in a screening environment? Did you get a chance to talk about him with other critics before audiences got a chance to see it?
I did screen this. This was a press screening, but I didn't really talk to anyone afterwards. I saw it with a few people I knew, but I don't know, it was a weeknight and I've gotten into the mode of movie over, I'm out, and I just run to the car and go home. So no, I genuinely knew no one's thoughts on this except, oh wow, I really kind of like this movie, and I wonder if other people are going to like it as much as me. And we're here now.
Yeah. So let's do the quick overview of this, right? So if you have not seen the film, a short synopsis. It's still playing in theaters. Probably will continue to play in theaters for a few more days, a few more weeks, hopefully a few more days. Ever since he was born, Cameron Cade has been dope. Shut up. Pop star. Cade was pushed hard by his father all throughout his childhood, and now, days before the football combine, not the NFL combine, very important distinction, he is considered a generational talented quarterback. But after a violent assault leaves him recovering from a head injury, Cade worries that his career might be over with before it even starts. Now, the only thing standing between him and obsolescence is a one-on-one session with Isaiah White, the former GOAT, greatest of all time, whose fanatical and hyper-violent training regimen soon breaks Cade down both body and mind. Co-written and directed by Justin Tipping, Him is the sports fan's answer to the Neon Demon. Donato, thoughts on Him?
The way I described it is Opus, but better, and sports. Like to me, this is the answer to Opus and cult fanaticism around a certain type of celebrity, and in this case, an entire industry, and that being the NFL. I really fucking love this movie, and I know I'm on an island here the minute I posted my review, because once again, I saw it with people, and I saw it with my roommate, and my roommate was also positive on it. So the only thing I knew is, hey, we're both kind of football fans, and we both understand what this movie was trying to do, and it might not be, well, let's put it this way. It's not subtle. It's not a subtle movie, and it never wants to be, and I think that works in the film's favor. And I now see that I am so alone in thinking that, because the criticisms of this movie are like, it doesn't bring anything new to the conversation. It's so in your face. It's so this, it's so that. But I think that's exactly what Him needed to be. It's talking to horror fans and football fans. And I'm not going to make any assumptions about the common football fan, because I am one. But I don't know. In today's modern world, a lot of people, they need messages spelled out in neon lights and traced in blood. Like, if it's not in their face, it goes over their head. So with everything that him is saying, I'm kind of really okay that it is so blatant and it is so obvious, because we don't get enough good sports horror. We don't
Hmm.
get enough good culty, sporty kind of movies. So for, Justin Tipping, the director, to take these big visual swings and make something so stylistic, I think it's such a beautiful movie to watch in the way that it's satirizing everything from like Gatorade commercials to the camera work on fields now. And it is so very football forward and football coded. Everything, it's the DNA, it's pigskin, it's all this horrible shit. And it is shining a light on the horrible shit that the NFL tries to shove under a rug, especially talking about CTE, talking about the way owners still look a certain way and the way they treat players is equating to, let's say, American history. So yeah, I don't know. It's making some big fucking swings, and I'm not saying they all land super immaculately, but I'd rather see something go super hard in the paint and aggressive than just kind of tiptoe around the meaning and just hope you get it. So for me, I fucking love what this was, just being a sports and horror fan and seeing that meld together in such a victorious way. I don't know.
For Matinato, him was a touchdown. There you go. There's your pull quote. You mentioned before, I'm glad you did, because it was something I was trying to think of as the movie was unfolding. Is there a lot of sports horror? Honestly, the only thing I could think of, the only thing that actively came to mind that wasn't some like, 70s or 80s slasher that is like a gimmicky kind of sports thing. Night Swim was the only recent entry that came into mind, and even that's super tangential. That's the Wyatt Russell film where he plays a baseball player who is recovering from a traumatic injury, gets a house with a pool in order to do low impact calisthenics, and then the pool wants him and promises to have his career back. But I was trying to be like, I was sort of surprised and stunned that there weren't more things that came to mind because, and we'll get into this in a second. I do think that sports movies and horror movies are just like a razor blade thin degree of separation away from each other. I think that they are inches, centimeters away from each other in the grand scheme of things. And I'm kind of bummed that I can't think of more films that sort of blur those lines.
Battlefield Baseball. Well, that is a overseas movie about literal death baseball league. Roy Scheider in Night Game, which is about a
Mm.
killer who kills people during Astros night games.
Personal
um,
favorite of yours, I'm sure.
I haven't seen it yet. Legitimately, I know as an
Oh,
Astros fan, I am really mad at myself for not having seen Night Game yet. But it exists. To say that it doesn't exist is wrong, because there are sports horror movies out there. Could you even consider The Battery as one? I mean, The Battery is right
yeah.
there, and you do have these other weirdo indie takes. Roller Ball, the original, not fucking the remake, because that's a dystopian sci-fi kind of scary version of it.
I mean, there's The Fan,
The
Robert De
Fan.
Niro and Wesley Snipes, which is very like it's a thriller versus a horror film, but I think it gets into a lot of this territory too. The thing that comes to mind an awful lot while watching this is, do you know your Shane Blacks? Do you remember the opening sequence from The Last Boy Scout, where the football player runs down the field with a gun and starts shooting people because he's basically like given himself over to the betting line and like needs to make this happen in order. A great cold open for a movie, and honestly, it playing in the same kind of like thematic deep end of the pool that I think that him is.
But to say, we don't really have sports at the forefront of horror, I think I
Yeah.
would make the argument, because even a movie like Girls with Balls, it's about a volleyball team in a slasher scenario, and it's like they're not playing volleyball to stay alive or anything; they just have the skills. There's also a Canadian film called Monster Brawl, which is literally a basically knockoff Universal Monsters are in a wrestling tournament, and
Hmm,
that's the entire
that's fun.
movie. It is fun. It is not great, but talking about sports and horror and just like closing that conversation, that is kind of where we sit. There's nothing super large with enough consistency to say it is a very varied subgenre, where him is the biggest spectacle version
Yeah.
of what sports and horror can be when combined in, again, what I would say, the right way. It doesn't go full. There's a Sega Genesis game called like Pigskin Football or something about literal like ogres and stuff playing a deathmatch football style, and I always joke we need a movie version of that.
A Blood Bowl is a long-standing miniatures game where you play fantasy factions and you play football games and you fight each other on the field as much. Yeah, that if you go to like board game tournaments in your town, they probably have like a Blood Bowl tournament that they're doing. It's a
I
lot of
have the
fun.
video game version of Blood Bowl
There
on
you
my
go.
PS5. I legit do.
Yeah, I am. So, well, let's talk about the sports elements of this because I think that's sort of key to understanding it. Yes, I don't think there's another movie that is trying to do what him is doing and mash up these two genres. And some of the context for me, I saw this a little bit later than most. It had been in theaters for a couple of weeks when I saw this. Obviously, we're recording this before we publish this episode this week, so him has already been out for a minute. I've heard tend not to read reviews until I've seen something, but I heard a little bit of the negative hype. I think it's also worth noting, even though it's not technically related to the film. I saw this after Pete Hegseth went on stage and delivered the most like pissing and vinegar thing about like this is what masculinity is, and we're going to be warriors. That like warriors ethos bullshit. I had that very much in the back of my mind when the Isaiah White character was spouting a lot of like, "This is what it takes. This is what you got to give," kind of stuff. I was so I'm with you. You're not alone. I like this one. I like this one a lot. I think that the honestly, I think the ending is bad. We'll get to that point, but I think that everything before then is very very solid. And what I was so struck about is if you watch the trailer, good trailer, the trailer really hints at where the film ends up, but the film doesn't spend most of the time there. A lot of the movie, I would say probably about 80 to 85% of the film, plays kind of like an edgy sports thriller. There isn't overt gestures towards the horror genre. It basically, if you stripped all of the horror elements, any of the supernatural pieces out of it, any of like where the film ends up going out of it, and just had it be what this guy thinks he has to do in order to be great, and what this other character, the younger character, Cade, is willing to convince himself of in order to follow in his footsteps. It's an incredibly brutal film. And I think it really gets to the heart of a lot of like the physical body horror that is professional sports. I mean, just this past weekend, Tyreek Hill, couldn't happen to a nicer guy, got tackled off the field, twisted his leg around in a different direction. And that image was like making the rounds on social media. You could see TikTok videos of it. They showed like highlights and stuff. That's sports. Like we're sort of, immune or inert to the fact that body horror is baked into everything. Every time somebody gets hit with a fastball, every time somebody gets tackled and comes down wrong, like body horror is baked into the sport, into every professional sport. And those things that him does, where it's just body horror, where it's a character that's getting hit in the face by a football because they're trying to do a team building exercise. It's a guy that gets a helmet to helmet hit and then goes into the most grotesque fencing position, the pose that players get into when they're knocked down on the field and suffer a concussion and kind of involuntary muscle spasms. That stuff is brutal in him, and it's not fantastical, and it's not, it's stylized, but it's not like trying to be, oh, it's a horror movie. It's just not trying to guss up. There's a reason the NFL didn't let them use real professional teams in this movie. It just is brutal. It taps into the body horror of football, and that alone is justification for him to exist, I think. It does a really good job of making football look ugly and violent in a way that we all sort of understand. We've all seen the injuries, we've all seen the tape. But I haven't seen a film that leaned into that as much. That the closest I guess would be what's the Canadian film about the bruiser brawler, whatever, about the hockey player?
Oh, Slapshot.
No, the Enforcer one with
Oh,
Sean
not
William Scott.
Slapshot. Right, the Goon.
The Goon, yeah, yeah. Goon is the only one that I can think of that like gets into the punishment of professional sports at this level, um, and I really responded to that. I thought that was extremely well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's number one, just having, this can maybe sound weird to say, but having the courage to go against the NFL and portray it in a certain way. And make those statements, because we do live in such a, you think about all the things that NFL players have gotten away with off the field just because they're a multi-million dollar, asset to a team. The lawyers that they have, access to, and how many movies are just about, draft day or something like that, or,
Hmm.
celebrating the NFL in such a way. And I'm not, listen, I watch the NFL too. I understand all this stuff. I say this as a Texans fan and someone, who just spent so much money to go to a LA Rams Texans game in person. I, I understand how that might sound hypocritical as well, but it's more just making the awareness, and it's more making the, like, the minute Deshaun Watson stuff happened as a Texans fan, I'm like, fucking, he should be banned forever. Like, there's no
Yeah.
conversation about, like, well, some fans have that. Well, what about an off field and this and that? Like, no, there needs to be acknowledgement of guys throwing women on piles of guns, and the multiple domestic abuse charges. Again, injury couldn't happen to a nicer guy, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's something enough where a movie is willing to, like, go full force and show you what it does in him, because it's from the very first scene. Little Cam as a child is watching his favorite player, Isaiah White, and we see that brutal graphic injury Isaiah takes in a championship game, and he wins the game, but his, like, bone is sticking out of his leg, and we see the gory details of it all. And that's when Cam's dad, look at it. You said this, but, like, it's when Cam's dad pats him on the back and is like, "That's what a man looks like.
Yeah.
That's what you want to aspire to be." And even from that moment, the movie's about how children are groomed. Like, it's literally grooming, like, an
Yep.
athlete for at a young age, from pee wee football up until they get that multi-million-dollar signing bonus or whatever it is. It is it's something that we value in such a high regard. And as a kid, oh my god, like, I want to be a quarterback. I want to be an NFL quarterback who has all the glory. Of course, I want all that. But then you see it through a different lens, and all of a sudden that changes. Like, all of a sudden that is now a predatory grooming scenario where children are getting subjected to concussions and injuries and all this stuff. And, all it takes is art to show that in a certain way. And I think that's what him does accomplish. And again, we knew it. It's not new. I understand that. This is all conversations we've had before, and it's not enlightening, let's say, but to show it in such a visceral and affecting way, yeah, that is new. I think that is something that 30 for 30 can't even do, where there's
Yeah.
tremendous documentaries on ESPN you can go and watch, or for wrestling, Dark Side of the Ring. They're making such great deep dives into horrible, horrible events in wrestling history. And, you know, still, to put it on the big screen like this, it's different. I think that's why him hit so hard.
I do like. I'm going to refer to the trailer again because I feel like now that I moved down, or now that I moved to a Regal and AMC place as opposed to like a Draft House place or an independent theater, I see the same trailers a lot. Like, projectionist, or not even projectionist. I don't have projectionists anymore. Managers put together a trailer package and then you watch the same thing. You get the trailer for him if it's a romantic comedy versus a horror movie versus you just get the trailer for him. So I've seen the trailer for him about 100 different times. The trailer for him suggests, we've all seen these types of films, a movie where they show a couple of their scenes and you're like, okay, I feel like I have seen everything that you have to offer with this scene. And I'm thinking specifically about the scene where the guy stands in front of the football throwing machine as an impetus. One of the second tier wide receivers stands there, and every time that Cade misses an open pass or doesn't get the ball out fast enough, that guy takes a football to the face. Like, I get it. Like, okay, that's going to be a thing. But when I watch the movie, it's probably just going to be like, I get the gist. I don't need to watch the whole thing. You kind of had a good, like, one idea there and it's gone. I was surprised at how many of the things that I'd seen in the trailer, how many of these extended training sequences are remarkably effective, because the two things that the tipping and the rest of the filmmakers, the rest of the cast and crew are working on, is it really does feel like, I compared it. I've got a review that will go up on Certified Forgotten by the time that you read this. And I compare it kind of like to it feels almost like an Edgar Allan Poe short story to me. When you think of like Poe having like the Mask of the Blood, the Red Death, where there's, you know, these characters that are in these ocean of faces that are like grotesque and twisted, and they're confused and they're spun around. So much of this movie is basically that for Cade. Like he's in an environment where everybody is grotesque and grinning, and the music is never ceasing, and it's like anxiety inducing and kind of perfect. And then there's the cuts to the X-ray vision that they go to again and again. And I thought that was going to be a gimmick that I would be annoyed by, and I never was. It's actually super effective. It's a really good way of reminding, even though it sort of feels like like an NFL blitz 2010s kind of like thing. It's a really effective way of reminding you not only what these players are doing to their bodies, but in the case of Cade, and you know the fact that his skull is literally stapled together, like the compound the additional damage that he does every time he takes another helmet hit. So these sequences, which I thought I was going to be like cool, they're supposed to be like, oh, there's going to be like a weird thing that happens, and it's gonna be violent. You're gonna kind of roll with it. Those each of those training exercises, each of the days that the film is broken into, the 7 days over the course of his little boot camp with Wayne's Isaiah White, each of those really worked. That's the bulk of the movie, and each of them was extremely effective because it was disorienting. It was like a fever dream. The music never let up. The performances were equal parts manic and confused. I was impressed. It really did feel like it was the story of somebody who was caught up in this cult of personality, had no clue how to get themselves out, and was so turned and twisted around they didn't even know if they wanted to. That really comes through. That really like that builds a foundation for him and for the reason that each character is doing what they're doing that I didn't expect from, you know, a movie that's a sports movie. Like I thought it would go through paces and it would kind of have like these story beats that it hit, but it unsettles you and it remains unsettled. And again, for like 85% of the film or even more, there's not really any overt horror stuff. There's like weird fans and things like that, but we're not talking about, you know, a um, Zach Kreger kind of like horror buildup. Like it's just a guy who's getting his ass kicked trying to play football.
And I think that's what disappointed some, where they wanted they wanted the translation of sports and horror to be literal. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted more of the monstrous, supernatural, all that stuff. And once again, I think actually where the film does get thrilling and horrific in its grounded sense, the only time I'll say grounded, but the ability that is just a cultish personality kind of thing. I think that again, once it works, like that's what this movie
Yeah.
needed, and Marlon Wayans and Tyreek Withers, you know, alone in this back and forth as veteran and rookie, are doing such a great job highlighting both mentalities. The
Yes.
veteran who, when he steps away, has nothing else. You know, how many, well, Tom Brady's, let's say, who can go on to own teams and do broadcasting, even though he's not great at it because he's just got the fucking connections, versus the veteran who you never hear from again and fades into obscurity. And sure, they've got all the money, they've got everything they need, but they don't have the praise and the attention anymore. And I think Marlon Wayans does a fantastic job of conveying that kind of nebulous area for his character. He knows his time is almost up, but is it yet? Is it this kid? Is this kid
Yeah.
really worthy to be my successor? And Tyreek Withers on the other side of that, the hunger and drive and the obsession within him to become the next White, even seeing all the terrible things that he puts himself through, even seeing the malevolence that is behind his eyes at times, he wants that still. And that's another great examination of just kind of the psyche of someone who wants that power and position. You know, it's the question of like, do you really want to get into politics as like an analog? Like, you have to be a certain kind of crazy to be a politician, and to analyze the types of people who do that, not even negatively, but what drives someone to be in that position is so interesting. And that's Cam. Like, that's
Yeah.
Cam going through every step of this gridlock kind of gauntlet that is sometimes just a regular training drill or just some hazing, and other times a like eyes wide shut, holy shit, why is the mascot now chasing me in my dreams, and why are the fans outside like ravenous rabid people with football masks and all this crazy shit, like, you know, the war paint of the team colors.
Hmm.
I think it's such a great just full submersion into everything about football culture, coming down to the finale where, well, things happen. I think are we good to spoil? Like, we're good to kind of,
Yeah, let's get into it just a little bit.
yeah.
Let's give him a flavor.
Yeah, it's the idea that literally Cam has been groomed the entire time. He's been selected, and he has to basically defeat, and however you interpret that, because it's shown many ways, he has to defeat Isaiah to become the next GOAT.
Yeah.
And when he walks out on the field to accept his position, let's say he's beleaguered, he's covered in blood, he's just done some terrible things, and he just sees all of the rich white dudes who keep the league going and have another sacrifice in front of them, you know, it's it's such an affecting moment because there's the faceless cheerleaders, there's once again the mascot cheering, but like in a very grotesque form. The Jets go overhead with red, white, and blue to make it super fucking obvious.
Hmm.
It is everything out of a Super Bowl celebration, and yet it turns into a total gore fest. And I am here for it, because if you haven't been subtle yet, why are you going to start at the finale? Nah, keep pushing, keep doing that. So yeah, have Tyreek just slaughter everyone, or sorry, Tariq Withers, just
Yeah.
slaughter everyone shirtless in his pants. Like, of course, like he's half jerseyed up and just covered in everyone else's gore. It's, fuck it, go for it. Why are we not?
Yeah. The ending didn't really work for me. It not, it's just honestly every scene that I like him, but every scene that Tim Heidecker is in is just like in a completely different place than the rest of the movie. The film has two comedians in kind of key roles, Tim Heidecker and Jim Jeffries, and their choices are made. Tonally, it those are the scenes I think where the movie isn't quite as sure of itself. Credit to Damon Wayans, who of course, or sorry, Marlon Wayans, who is of course a comedian, finds the funny elements in the character of Isaiah White, but never plays it too hard. He's able to walk that line, I think, a lot better than Heidecker and Jeffries. Also, shout out to Wayans, who is comfortably a decade too old to play this role. 54 years old in real life. The oldest NFL quarterback of all time was George Blanda, who played until he was 48. You never for a second don't buy Isaiah White as a character that could go out and play another season if they needed to. Um, Great performance by Wayans. Should probably, in my world, would get a little bit of end of season attention for some, down the ballot categories with regional film critic groups and things like that. Probably won't, but it's really kind of an outstanding performance. But I think that's kind of the where the movie ends up, right? We're in a moment in time where a lot of films, a lot of concepts feel like they need to have that big midsummer A24 style, exit, right? The hereditary exit where like shit just gets crazy in the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie. I don't think every story needs that. I don't think that that's maybe really where Him's heart lies, is in sort of the bright, bloody, gory comedy of the end. I don't begrudge them going there, and it sort of proved to me the idea that I've always said that a bad movie can be saved by a good ending, and I was always curious if the inverse was true. I can prove that it isn't. I think Him is a good movie with a bad ending, but I don't think that the bad ending for me is enough to knock it down much more than just like a half a peg. So, I will say, if you do need a little bit of that spectacle, if you do want something that is swinging for those A24 fences at the end, you'll get that with Him. But it's a lot more fun if you just think of it as the most fucked up 30 for 30 that you'll ever watch.
Yeah, it's not ambiguous. It's very obvious. It's not saying anything that you will walk out and go, "Oh wow, I never thought about that." No, you have, but you might think about it in a different way, and that's where I think him works the best. Not every movie has to chart new territory. It's just about how the storytelling frames something that you might know
Mm-hmm.
already. And familiarity isn't a bad thing. I used to be like, oh, I used to use familiar as solely a derogatory word as a critic, and I actually like wrote myself out of that because I was like, well, at the end of the day though, like familiar is not bad. It's how the execution lays and how familiar is used. It's the same thing as a jump scare, you know. Jump scares aren't bad. It's just some filmmakers don't know how to make use of a proper jump scare. So, you know, is him a familiar sports story? Absolutely. There's nothing new about this, but through its presentation, once again, I will say, I think this is an incredibly stylistic movie. I think
Yeah.
Justin Tipping does a phenomenal job. Cinematography is on point. It's so like sharp and colorful, and it also again uses football culture to like the extent that it should and beyond. So for all those reasons, I really, really, really like him, and I get that it ain't anyone's cup of tea, but I don't know. My heart was warmed when somebody came up to me and they're like, "Oh man, like this could be your new The Gallows, where you plant your flag." And I'm like, "Yeah, the fact that number one, you even remember that The Gallows is my bag. I love you for that, number one. But this is my new The Gallows. This is my. I don't care if you all hate this. I will go hard for him."
Yeah. Listen, you and I so very rarely agree in any meaningful way, but we agree on this, and so I think that's probably you're absolutely right. It's familiar, but there is a particular style of film, and I always think of this as the perfection. The perfection is just a B movie version of an A plus South Korean thriller. It's just a like B movie American version of a South Korean thriller. There is nothing wrong with being the B movie version, or as I said in my review, the JUCO, the junior college version of a better movie. If you execute well, totally fine to be Division two. You don't need to be you don't need to be doing full ride scholarship. It's totally cool to clean up against a less talented field of competition.
Also, the score. Sorry, like I just keep thinking
Yeah,
of little
it's good.
things. The score is phenomenal, blending marching band tunes with this really hypnotic, trancy score. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I could just keep going on about it. So
Yeah.
you got my thumbs up.
Well, if you've been on the fence, two Matts agree. You should see it. You should like it. And I think that that's hopefully it immediately feels like one of those films that in a few years' time people are going to be like, oh, why did everybody write off him? So just get ahead of the fucking curve. Donato and I know what we're talking about. We've been doing this a long time. In 10 years, people will be like, did you know that him was a pretty good sports football horror movie? Just skip that whole middle part. Just watch it and like it. Let's fast forward. Come on. We still life is too short for us to spend a decade pretending like this isn't a good horror movie. That's it for our conversation on him. Donato, if folks want to connect with you online, go dig up your review of him. Or if I can't remember if you did it on the Merry Hour, talk about some of the thoughts you have about it in other contexts. Where do folks go to connect with you online?
Yeah, you can find my review of him on Daily Dead. I did a full written review, so it's up there. And one of the only positives in a 30% score on Rotten Tomatoes of
I'm bumping that
108.
up. You and me, I'm bumping. I'm going to be right there with you. Another
Hell
positive
yeah.
review.
So sorry, 31% out of 186 critics. But you can find me at Donatobomb, as always, DONATOBOMB. And that's going to be Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok. I have so much writing up over the last few days. I just got back from Fantastic Fest, as you all know, from our last episode, and all my reviews are now posted. I did a wrap up article for IGN today that has all my favorites that I reviewed or didn't review. And I am, you know, me and Monocle are getting ready for Brooklyn Horror in 2 weeks. So I will have more horror festival coverage on the horizon. But look out for more articles. Just follow me. You're going to see them.
Very true. As for myself, it's just Blue Sky. You can follow me at monocle.bsky.social or whatever it is. But I'm excited to share that this month at Certified Forgotten, we are running our first ever deal. It is spooky season. It is Halloween. We want everybody to be able to, enjoy the 300 plus essays and reviews that we've written over the years that our amazing contributors written over the years. And if you want to have access to all of that for the month of October, go to certifiedforgotten.com, click on that little subscribe button at the top, and you will get your first month of Certified Forgotten for only $1. Obviously, we'd love it if you'd stick around in month 2 and beyond at $5 a month. But as a special thank you to everybody who supports us and who needs, not even wants, but needs to find some weird and fun and international shit to watch during this Halloween season, sign up today for $1. You'll get 30 days of Certified Forgotten, You'll get our weekly email, our newsletter that comes to you on Fridays. It's a great deal. I think you should do it. What are you waiting for? Go do it now. We'll wait, and we'll see you next time.